We're a couple of weeks after TRAKA 560, and I've been holding back taking my bike to pieces because I was quite in love with it and also was a little bit scarred by it. But I wanted to talk you through the setup because I'm a bit of a geek and this was weeks of preparation to get it ready, so I wanted to share. First of all, it's the OSTRO gravel. This bike was not designed for ultras. It's a racing gravel bike. It was one of the first pure aero racing gravel bikes made. It takes its name from the OSTRO van, our road bike, which is third-party tested as the fastest road bike in the world. We took some of that and applied it to the OSTRO gravel. It has a slightly steeper head tube and seat tube to give it the handling that I think a lot of road riders and racers like on a gravel bike, which isn't a compromise. It means this is one of the most responsive and genuinely, if you get on one, it's one of the fastest. Now, for the TRAKA 560, it was actually beneficial because there were 220 kilometers of road in the 560 kilometers. Yet, I had to carry everything with me, so I made some little changes to it, as you can see. First of all, what I did was put on the ABO3 aero bars with extensions because I wanted that time trial position to be able to hit the flat roads and actually get a little bit of position change, but also be able to go a lot faster. And it did work because I'd noticed in training before when I got in the aero position, it would just rocket up the speed. So that was hugely beneficial. On the ABO3s, I put the SRAM blips. I'm using a SRAM Red Explorer group set with a 1044 cassette. I normally run a 44 front ring. I put on a 42 ring because of the amount of climbing. There was 9,500 meters of climbing in the 560 kilometers. With hindsight, I should have gone smaller because 42, 44 was still a little bit too big when I take into the amount of weight I was carrying, but it worked faultlessly. It was amazing. And having the blips on the bars here was just a game changer. Then regards tires, because that's always a big conversation in gravel, I decided to go for the Continental Terra Speeds, which did my research, are supposed to be some of the least rolling resistance available when it comes to gravel tires. I had no issues. I had one moment where I lost a little bit of air from an impact in the back, but just blew it up almost instantly and it was fine. I was running 1.9 bar in those tires and they're 45 front and rear, which is optimum for the bike and was fine for me for all terrain, covered everything. As for the actual carrying, I was using POC prototype bags. They're actually designed for the top tube. On the OSTRO gravel, you do have bento mounts at the front on the top tube, but having bags there just annoys me. So I put the bag underneath and I put the bento bag at the back. And the reason I put the tire levers between the seat post and the bento bag on the top was because it stopped my legs rubbing on the bag because the slightest bit of touching was just killing me. So that was one day out there with the bike testing positioning to get those bags right. Those bags were just stuffed full of food and gels. As for bottles, carrying 2.5 liters in total, the OSTRO gravel has a third bottle mount on the down tube. Had 1 liter there, then two 750ml bottles. I was also had a 2 liter Camelback on. As for pedals, these are the Hope Union RCs. Bit of a hipster alternate to SPDs. I love them. They've come from my mountain bike and I put them on there. Saddle is a WTB Silverado with tie rails. That's my mountain bike saddle and it's the saddle that I used at Cape Epic, the migration race last year, which is a 4-day crazy gravel race in Kenya, which this bike did as well. Lights, that was probably where I was most scared because I've never ridden through the night before, so I completely overdid it. I have a lupine, I think the model is, I want to say Blick or something. That's here. And I had 2 batteries for it. I had the big battery, but I was so scared. I also had a backup second battery there. I didn't need it. The big battery got me through. I was also using a Garmin Vario light as well in the front. Then I had, again, because my fear, I had another spare battery pack on the stem. So I was totally covered. I had a rear light on the back. Can't remember the model of that, I'm afraid, but that was on throughout the night as well and worked. Lastly, and not least, the Black Ink 34 wheels, which are bomb-proof, were amazing and just covered everything. And I've been using those through all sorts of events. And they were being stopped by Hope brakes. So I wasn't actually using SRAM calipers. I was using Hope. and they're mind-bendingly strong. Double piston disc brakes, and considering the extra weight I had and the type of descending I was doing, they served me fantastically. I was also, regardless of repairs, so the seat bag on the back was just all my toolkit. And I did have a muck-off BAM canister, but that bounced out at some point, and I didn't even notice that until I brought the bike down here in the studio. So thankfully, I'd never needed it. And all in all, I think that's it. That was a TRAKA 560 bike, and now I'm going to strip it down and get it ready for Unbound and take it back to its core purpose, which is going really fast, I hope. I think what probably a lot of people think is, did I change my position? Did I alter it, considering it was going to be 30 hours on the bike versus 4 or 5 hours, which is a pretty long gravel race normally? I decided not to. It's almost exactly the same. The compromise was I went from 38 handlebars to 40. So I widened it out slightly. That was mainly to accommodate the ABO3 extensions, which are here. Because one thing you find when you've been on the bike that long, you want to be able to change position. You want to be able to have options. So I could be on the tops, I could be on the hoods, occasionally in the drops, but sometimes here in the TT position, but I wasn't in the full TT position all the time. Sometimes I've had my hands here. So I actually had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different positions I could have on the handlebar, which just relax the body a bit. As for the feeling of the bike on the differing terrain, because that's one of the things in a TRAKA 560, there are so many different types of terrain. You're going from occasionally beautiful asphalt to smooth champagne gravel bike paths to rock-strewn 15% descents to horrible, gravelly, random uphill mountains. And amazingly, it was fine everywhere. The tire pressure was perhaps a little bit lower in the back. I started with 1.9 bar. It went down a little bit at the back and got a bit softer, but I actually preferred that. And what's been really interesting is that gave me a lot of grip. And because of the amount of climbing I was doing, I could hear the tire kind of biting into the ground. And I've actually rubbed through quite a lot of the tread on the rear tire in those 560 Ks, but I quite liked it. So although I started at 1.9 bar, I must have lost a fair bit in the back because it actually got it quite soft, and I loved it everywhere. As for the kind of the combination, I think with this tires and this setup, I'm very accustomed to the bike for sure, but it didn't matter where I was, I could find a way to make it feel just right. As I said, there are times where it was incredibly technical, a little bit perilous, especially as I started to lose lucidity and get a bit sketched out mentally more than physically. Yet I just slow down. I just kind of go within my limits. In the first few hours, I was still enjoying descents because I love descending, where I could go faster than everybody else actually. But then I started to notice I miss corners. I get the braking wrong, take the wrong line. And at about that point, that was about 8 hours in, I decided to just throttle all the way back. And it turned into very much safety first, conservative, don't get punctures, don't crash, because I could see that was going to be the main risk. As you go deep into one of these events, it's the cognitive load, which starts to get heavy and you just make little mistakes. But the great thing with this bike is the handling, even with all the extra weight, because if we look on the bike, there was 2.5 liters of water. I was carrying in total nearly about 2 kilos of gels and bars. So with all the other bits, there's probably 5, 6 kilos extra on the bike with the batteries, lights, the tools, the TT extensions, the whole package. It was a very different bike regards how it felt when you got out of the saddle in particular, and the fact that you just had to realize that it was going to be slower going uphill. But when it came to flat and descending, no difference whatsoever. It may as well have been a bike that had none of the excess on it. It was still flying along, which I was pretty surprised at. So all in all, what was most amazing was that I did the 30 hours and my back went for sure after about 20 hours. It started to ache, but I didn't notice that until I got off the bike. On the bike, I was fine. But if I was to stop and get off the bike, then it was very difficult to get out of the cycling position. And that's where I really noticed it. And that's where I noticed it in the days afterwards. But all in all, I was super surprised because I've never done this before and never had a bike so overloaded. I mean, it wasn't overloaded, it was perfectly loaded, but it really did feel almost exactly the same as it does all the time. And I think it benefited as well because the Ostro gravel has the classic factor performance, agile, kind of sharp handling. It benefited massively having that geometry and that build and engineering, because it meant with all the equipment on, all the overloading, all the excess baggage, it still handled incredibly well. So all in all, I mean, I was pleasantly surprised the Ostro gravel can be altered and adapted and kind of turned into a Mad Max machine and still keep its core purpose.